Welcome back to my channel. This is Coach DC from All 22 Films, and I've got another projection slash film study look at what Declan Doyle's offense could look like in Baltimore in 2026. And I'm going to be real specific here with this one. We're going to focus on a particular play concept that I call down sweep that is almost exclusively run into the boundary. The first three iterations that I'll show here will be Ravens film from 2024 or 2025, and then a little bit later I'll show how teams have tried to stop this play or effectively neutralized it from a one-high safety look. Now this is actually 2024 film here. I will tell you the down sweep play is something that's been in the Ben Johnson playbook for years, dating back to 2023 when I really seriously started to try to cover Lions games. I think Declan Doyle should keep this. The Ravens have run it under Todd Monken. What it will look like for any team that runs it, but in particular the Ravens as far as into the boundaries, you're going to run it to a tight end side. You're going to need a tight end to either down block a defensive end or arc release, and I'll show you that adaptation here in a little bit. In addition, I'll give you a one play from the Broncos film that I recently went back and examined that's got remarkable similarities, if you ask me, to how the Ravens and the Lions used to run it under Ben Johnson. But in any case, it's a horizontal path by the running back, and you can see Henry is set up to the field, the wide side of the field. And the explanation that I'll give to you here is basically you're trying to kick out the edge defender to the boundary or pin him down. And in this case, the Ravens are pinning him down with Mark Andrews, the tight end, blocking down on that defensive end. We're talking about right here. That allows the front side guard to loop to the outside or pull to the outside. And the center, who of course is gone at this point, Tyler Linderbaum. Actually, Tyler Linderbaum kind of gets jacked up on this play. But the Cowboys got shredded in this 2024 game for a lot of reasons. Whether it was a one high safety look, a two high safety structure. They just did a ton of things that were unsound, and they didn't play the option very well at all. The Ravens are making this look like an option play with Lamar obviously picking up the defensive end Parsons, who's forcing a give read. This is early in the 24 season. That's what a lot of people did as far as the Ravens option looks. They basically forced a give read to the quarterback, and Derrick Henry ended up destroying them. In addition, the inside linebacker on the motion by Zay Flowers was pulled to the field. Could be a coverage adjustment or could be as a result of the coverage that the Cowboys had called. We'll never really find out because it was a run play that ended up resulting in a first down. A lot of teams run this. It's a sweep path generally, number one. Number two, it's oftentimes, or it's almost always, I should say, out of what I call B gun. So the tight end, Andrews, is into the boundary. This is the same play from the end zone angle with Henry set up to the opposite side, B gun, versus Henry being on the same side as the tight end, I would call A. All right, the end zone angle will give us a really great look at the blocking scheme. So there's a lot going on here. Number one, that inside linebacker, Eric Kendricks, who of course in 25 moved on to the 49ers, he's going to move or shift outside to match that motion from Zay Flowers. The inside linebacker 13 is pretty much left on an island. So here's the two down blocks that occur. Stanley down on the defensive tackle, Andrews down on the defensive end. And all of that is designed to just pin those guys to the inside and let the guard Voorhees pull to get outside and kick out either an edge defender or in this case a strong safety who's walked up. Linderbaum doesn't block 13. 13 really lights him up in my opinion, knocks him on the ground, but Henry reads it, ends up picking up a first down. And it is Micah Parsons who's the read man on the other side. Here's Parsons on the play, or on the read initially. He's the guy who actually makes the tackle. There's just no one there. It's because the inside linebacker, mathematically, it's because the inside linebacker, Kendricks, expanded with that motion. So there's no backup player. There's no pursuit player on the inside-out angle from a backside inside linebacker position. And that's really what opened up the scene for Henry to bounce off of 13 and end up picking up the first down. It's a great concept from the plays that I have saved on my computer, solely run into the boundary. Found 16 iterations of down sweep from 2024 and 2025 film, not all Ravens stuff, and all of them were run into the boundary or the short side of the field. 2025 film here, that late season destruction of the Packers in Green Bay. Of course, the Packers were missing some defensive tackles. Mike Parsons obviously out for the year at this point. Normally, this is how you would block it, as I just discussed. Andrews, the tight end stepping down to block the defensive end. When I give you the end zone angle, I'll give you a possible explanation as to why they end up A, arc releasing this with Andrews and Likely, and B, making what I would consider to be a short call for the frontside guard. In this case, it's Falele. Too high safety structure, a little bit of a different angle for Henry. And I wonder, or I project that that's a result of the defensive end's initial alignment. But you can see the wall that is being created by Andrews, Linderbaum, and then these two offensive linemen here. The kick out block by Falele was, initially effective in terms of creating that lane for Henry to run onto. I'll run this in slow motion a couple of times. You can see the kick out by Falele there, and then Linderbaum looping around to go get the backside inside linebacker. Andrews got the front side inside linebacker. Likely got nobody. It's like, after watching some of the Ravens film from last year, his blocking was, it was inconsistent. There were some times where he did appear to execute his job, but there were a lot of times where you got stuff like this, where Likely initially veered to the safety for whatever reason, thought that he should go back out to the corner and didn't touch either of those guys at all. The arc release concept is designed to give the defensive end something else to worry about. And in my opinion, you've got a real lack of awareness by this boundary side defensive end. So we're talking about, I think it's Inagbare, who's actually a really good player. I like him. He's got the running back opposite of him. And so getting upfield here is really just a waste of time, if you ask me, and opens up that off-tackle lane just enough for Henry to scoot behind Linderbaum and then bring this back off-tackle, kind of an angled run. It's a great concept. I do think that sometimes NFL defenses being either A, really unaware, or B, super undisciplined, kind of opens themselves up to it. This is the same play from the end zone angle. And so this defensive end is actually obscuring or covering up Andrews because he's head up. He's lined up directly over top of Andrews. I think this is when the short call was made, basically telling the guard how to block this and possibly changing Henry's path from being more sweep-oriented, flat or lateral, to being a little bit more angled off tackle, if you will. But then the defensive end or the edge defender kind of stems back down and gets a little closer, and I think that's what makes this a tighter alignment. In addition, you got Linderbaum is going to pull and wrap all the way around to go get the backside inside linebacker. It's a real nice job, if you ask me, from Voorhees on the backside as the left guard, scooping this defensive tackle. Quick first step, trying to get his head to this side, prevent that defensive tackle from closing down here. So, yeah, you've got to have an athletic center to get this accomplished. The Ravens had that in recent years. Do they in 2026? Yet to be seen or yet to be answered. It's equally important that the backside guard is able to scoop. If you want to call it a reach, that's fine. I'll consistently refer to it as a scoop on the backside. It's equally important that you get that guy scooped so the running back can go on his intended path underneath the kick-out block of, in this case, Falele, the right guard. It's a really great play concept that's a lot of fun to watch. I started to really notice it or take note of it in 2023, Ben Johnson in Detroit. Here's the wall that you can see has been created. A little bit different look at it from the end zone angle. When I say wall, I'm talking about all the Packers defenders being on this side, while the Ravens blockers are between the Packers players and Derrick Henry. Just common sense, right? Just build a wall and not allow the Packers players to get through. It happens a lot, if you ask me, and it's all boundary side focused. It generally gives nickel defenses, base nickel defenses, trouble, whether it's 11 personnel or 12. None of us have any idea how teams are going to defend the Ravens in 2026. From a too high safety structure, whether it's nickel or 4-3, you got real issues defending this play into the boundary. And I've got, I think, 7 plays here for you to see and kind of confirm that. Again, they're all focused into the boundary. This is another arc release. Of course, it's not Ravens film. This is Lions 2024 because you got Kevin Zeitler as the right guard, Frank Ragnow, who's since retired and then briefly thought about coming back in 2025, is the center. So there's the defensive end that is either going to be pinned down by the tight end or have to deal with an arc release and then a kick-out block. And that's what occurs here. Laporta, the only tight end here in 11 personnel group, going to loop to the outside and go get the corner. Pretty easy block for him. Williams has got a tough task. Williams, the split end, the receiver down to the boundary. He's got to go get the front side inside linebacker. He misses. But Zeitler and Ragnow pick those guys up. And again, you get an idea of a wall that's been created. The first guy to make contact is actually the boundary side safety. In addition, it's a really great job by the backside inside linebacker of getting here as well. Both of those guys will converge and make contact with David Montgomery. I don't think Taylor Decker does a good job at all on the backside closing that guy off. But you can see, like I said, the wall that's been created here. Montgomery's going to kind of slide back to the outside, and I'll give you the end zone angle here in a moment, into the boundary. Great way to be for Derrick Henry or Justice Hill or any running back for that matter for the Ravens in 2025, Randall or Ali if he gets some time. Attack into the boundary, be both the jab and almost like a lead straight right hand. Force the defense to, in some ways, get out of these two high safety structures. I think it's a great way to also, on 2nd and 8, 2nd and 10, kind of recoup yards into the boundary, get your offense back on schedule, if you will. Some of the similarities that I've noticed in previous videos, talking about the last 2 or 3 years, between Todd Monken and Ben Johnson was willingness, or I should say focus on attacking into the boundary, forcing you as a defense to account for that open space if you're in a nickel platform. Here it's a 2-high structure. You can partially see the nickel defender for the Cowboys. Again, it's 11 personnel. It's the same play from the end zone angle, by the way. I hope that's one of the things Declan Doyle grabbed from Ben Johnson and maybe even being exposed or around Eric Bieniemy on the coaching staff. Again, this is an arc release. What that means is instead of the tight end blocking down, you can see because of the angle that he does not have, he would have to, in some way, reach that defensive end, and that's not what they want. They want to get the defensive end. They want to get some type of seam down such that the pullers, in this case, it's Zeitler as the right guard, Ragnow as the backside center, they want to get those guys able to get around the defensive end. So things work out a little bit funny here because Zeitler ends up logging that defensive end. And you'll see 2 examples here of edge defenders with Jared Goff like freezing and flattening, slow playing it, shuffling, whatever you want to call it, surf technique, as opposed to just go chase the running back. Like force Jared Goff to keep the ball and run to the outside. Now, granted, sometimes there's an RPO off screen here, and I'll give you one example of that a little bit later. I'm not sure if I have the all 22 of the Broncos play or not. I'm not sure what the animation of the 2 names here is off, meaning Ragnow and Zeitler. I'm still learning, I should say, the Once Sports Telestrator program or Once Sports Analyser as well. I love this play concept. I've really enjoyed watching it. Watching it over the course of years with Ben Johnson in Detroit. I think the Ravens can make great use of it still. You saw that they ran it earlier in the last 2 seasons because we'll have Lamar Jackson out here, right, at quarterback. And presumably that would force field side defensive ends to have this type of reaction. It surprises me. Well, it surprises me, and both doesn't, that there's such a lack of awareness for some of these guys at the NFL level. It's consistent. Every week you see opportunities for them to look, okay, do I have the back to my side or not? A. And then B, is it an athletic quarterback and someone that I should slow play it, or is it someone where I should just go chase the running back and try to get me a tackle for loss or a tackle from behind? Start to talk about answers here, which I've alluded to a little bit, dropping the boundary side safety down. In this case, you can see the ball is on the left hash. That's illustrated by the blue line. So we've got the boundary or the short side of the field down here and the field or the wide side up at the top. Starks is walking down to be that extra defender, and it's a 2x2 set out of 12 personnel. So 2 tight ends down here into the boundary, and the way those guys are going to block this, first of all, the outside tight end is going to go get Starks because Starks has walked up. And the inside tight end is going to loop around, try to go get the corner, Awuzie. Now, Awuzie actually lays a pretty big shot on Gibbs here, number 1. Number 2, Roquan gets cut off as the backside inside linebacker. And it's very easy for me to say, hey, Mike Green, and when I give you the end zone now, I'll explain this a little bit better. Mike Green, if there's a mesh between the running back and Goff, you need to take off and go. Well, this sweep path actually makes that more difficult to accomplish, which is one of the reasons why it's a great concept. Green is not going to be able to run upfield and then chase this down at all because of the path, because of the sweep path that Gibbs is taking. That's where I think this creates a ton of conflict. If it is a zone read, if it is a zone read, the quarterback's actually reading it, and you slow play it at all, flat, surf, whatever you want to call it, half man, you're just not going to get there, especially against a running back like Jahmyr Gibbs. You can see that Sewell has cut off Roquan. We're talking about this here, and it's a Wouzier who's got his eyes into the inside as the boundary side corner. He's the guy who's going to lay a shot on Gibbs. I think Gibbs still picks up the first down. It gets pretty close to it. There's another one of those situations in this week 3 matchup where on a 2nd and 8 or 2nd and 10, in fact, the Lions came out and ran the football, and the Ravens were almost, a little bit caught off guard, if you will, especially early, by the Lions' willingness to run the ball on 2nd and long. I think we actually made the tackle here a little bit short, so my apologies for that. They do a really nice job of scooping on the backside with Tate Radledge, the rookie right guard for the Lions, scooping or reaching, however you want to refer to it. Travis Jones, first puller is Mahogany, second puller is the center. And look, if you're going to play things like this with the edge defender, then this guy's going to get cut off. I mean, there's nothing to stop Penei Sewell from immediately releasing up to the second level. At the NFL level where nobody gets hands on tackles at all, this is going to happen if this is how you play it. If you surf it or half man it, we would expect to see this type of reaction with Lamar Jackson back there at quarterback. We've done enough, myself included, about criticizing our defense, the lack of awareness during the course of the 2025 season. It should be obvious that we could play this better, I think, here, running down the line, given who the quarterback is. As an aside, Tavius Robinson is trying to turn this upfield. Starks ends up going outside of the block that he initially tries to take on here, and you can see the seam that's created for Gibbs. Like I said, I don't think he actually gained the first down. A ton of criticisms on against our defense, well warranted if you ask me, from 2025 especially. Another iteration of it, and I actually showed this play from both angles in a video that I put out, I believe Wednesday night, on Declan Doyle's offense, but that was more, I would say, extreme projection because it was focusing on Broncos pass concepts that in the end I felt like weren't even siblings to what Ben Johnson generally does. So as a result, I'll be using pretty much Bears film to try to talk about third down pass concepts, especially given that Caleb Williams was so athletic and slippery back there as far as defensive linemen trying to control him and corral him. This is from Week 18. This was a difficult game to watch. Denver wins 19-3. 12 personnel group here. And so what's going to happen is a very similar reaction to a play that I showed you earlier. This inside linebacker is going to widen up when Evan Ingram goes off screen. Essentially, you've got an RPO there. And so the Chargers, end up really, I would say, being kind of a man down against the run, if you will. And that's because of the blocking scheme that the Broncos use. I'm talking about this tackle. So I spent some time discussing the edge defenders, whether it was Mike Green or anyone else, Micah Parsons, whether or not they should go with the running back. In this case, that edge defender can't because there's a lock call on the backside. The tackle was actually blocking him, base block, whatever you want to call it. But you got the same scheme down with the tackle and the tight end. The frontside guard, the right guard, 77, is going to pull and kick. He actually ends up logging here. It certainly looks like Nix is reading this. He's definitely looking off screen. It's a 4-on-3 for Denver, or excuse me, for the Chargers out there. And so that's why this is a give. If he is, in fact, reading it, the Chargers have numbers off screen to our right, like the 3 o'clock position. The Broncos do not. The Broncos have numbers to the boundary, obviously, because that's where this thing ends up going. Oh, by the way, it's Tony Jefferson on the tackle, who had an amazing 2025, if you ask me. Same scheme, right? Guard, center, pulling, scooping the backside defensive tackle with the backside guard. We're talking about what happens here. I know that guy's kind of obscured. I do really like the magnification, but I need to figure out a way to be able to run the play a couple of times and have the magnification show up on one iteration or one run of the play and not the next one. 2 more examples of this play concept, down sweep. This one The Ravens at least have an idea or a concept of how to defend it. With an athletic quarterback here, Malik Willis, you would think that you would kind of sit, stop, or slow down and play it very similar to how Mike Green did earlier against Jared Goff. It's a one high safety structure from Baltimore. How I know that is we've got Gilman walked up here. And then in the middle of the field is Starks. Hamilton is off screen to our left, kind of like the 9 o'clock position. Roquan knows something. He's pointing to that side. Gilman, I think, plays this beautifully. There's a control aspect to this as far as the tight end being into the boundary. And what I mean by that is, since the tight end is into the boundary, and presumably we're in a nickel look, or presumably you're seeing a nickel look out of 11 personnel, tight end located here, that generally means you're going to get the 3 technique to that side and an A-gap technique to the other, whether it's a 2-eye, whether it's a shade, a 1, whatever. So the blocking scheme can be predicted. And I think that's why this is consistently effective at the NFL level, because from a 2-high safety structure, they know what they're going to get. Here, the Ravens have walked Gilman up, and he plays this fantastic, if you ask me. Downhill, fits between the 2 pullers. How does that happen? It's because Ojabo has ended up inside of the gap where he lined up. Initially, Ojabo lined up kind of head up, and you can see he's stepping to the inside. So he's clearing the path. Ojabo. He's clearing the path for Gilman and then Simpson to both fit off tackle. I don't think Simpson fits as tight as he could here to the wall. You can see the width that he ends up getting, but sometimes these angles are a little bit deceiving. Ojabo is also spinning out of it. Fortunately, Simpson is able to get back in there. Let's talk about the read for a minute, or let's talk about the reaction of the defense and what we, as Ravens fans, could expect if we got Lamar Jackson. If we continue to run this with Lamar Jackson. Well, you can see what Green is doing. Green is stepping down here, and then we're gap exchanging it. Roquan is widening up. Presumably, Roquan is widening up for if the quarterback keeps it, and or if he throws it back out there to that motion. We're talking about the guy who went in motion here, number 11. I think that's Wicks, but I could be wrong. In any case, we should get the opposite reaction, I should say, in that forcing a give read to Derrick Henry. That's what we saw in 2024, especially early, and even up to 2025 in situations where we ran read option stuff. Teams were oftentimes, other than the Steelers, the second time we played them, teams were oftentimes willing to force Lamar Jackson to give it and then just try to go tackle the ball carrier, in this case, Derrick Henry. That last one was a 1-high safety look, just like the play before it, where Starks had rolled up against the Lions on the 2nd and 10 in week 3. This will be the last one, and this is going back even further, but it's another example of how teams try to stop this play concept. Well, in this case, they actually do. It's quite successful. This is 2024 film, or 2023, excuse me. Julian Love is going to make an amazing play down here into the boundary. This is the larger point for me, and it's something I said when finally got to watch some Todd Monken offense film when he was hired in 2023. Doyle can use schemes like this to force teams to defend the boundary side run and get them in a 1-high safety look, and then use that to attack elsewhere. Essentially, you're dictating the terms of how the defense can line up. Of course, you don't know the coverage, but you can make them be a little bit more predictable, if you ask me. Here, Love just does a badass job. It's also related to what Derrick Hall, the edge defender, does down here to the bottom side. So there's the scheme. Same thing that we've been talking about. Down block by the tight end, illustrated by this yellow line. And then the front side guard pulling, illustrated by the orange line. And then the center, Ragnow, once again, getting all the way out here into the boundary. Love does a great job. This is taking on Jonah Jackson, who, of course, went to the Rams in 24, and then back with Ben Johnson and the Chicago Bears in 25. Love bounces off of them. They force Gibbs to, string it out, stretch it out to the sideline. So my point in talking about this concept is the reason, or rationale, I should say, is ran into this play concept during the Broncos film examination a couple of nights ago, talking about their pass concepts, basically at the behest or the suggestion of someone in the comment section. Saw this play concept, maybe the 4th or 5th one that I showed you, and remembered, okay, Ben Johnson runs it a whole lot, because I had seen it covering Lions games. and B, that the Ravens had utilized down sweep a lot before. You may be tired of me talking about Ben Johnson. I hope that you're not, because I hope that's Declan Doyle's main offensive influence. I know he spent more time with Sean Payton. In my opinion, we would be better served by Doyle running things similar to, and calling plays similar to what Ben Johnson did in Detroit and then last year in Chicago. And I think at this point that information is out there. What Doyle wants to run. When I say out there, it's on social media, in articles, clips, drills that we see from minicamp with Lamar under center. Even things said by Zay Flowers, Smythe, Lamar. Smythe's words were telling. I think he said, this is basically the exact same system and terminology that we ran in Chicago last year. That's fantastic for me to hear as someone who spent a lot of time watching Ben Johnson call plays and manipulate people. I would love to, as an extension of that, I'm not going to get into this completely, but I would love to see attempts by Doyle to recreate the trick play usage. I have my own thoughts, really I should say theories, about how Ben Johnson practices trick plays in an efficient way, more so in Detroit, but also Chicago last year. And when his guys are asked or tasked with executing those trick plays, they do so efficiently. I'll go more in depth about my thoughts a little bit later. I explained my thoughts or theories to Lions fans probably between the 2023 and 24 season. Anyway, Henry under Monken, at times he was the jab and the right cross, oftentimes into the boundary. In fact, that was where he did a ton of damage. Some of the attack points there into the boundary really overlapped with our tendency to run to the left, for obvious reasons in 2024 and then even in 25. Whether they're in 12 personnel, 11 personnel, and there's other concepts besides just the down sweep, I think this is a great way to attack teams that are in a too high structure. In particular, teams that want to be a nickel-based defense. That would be like, the Seahawks. What the Bills used to be with Taron Johnson. They've now, he's now with the Raiders and sitting out for contract reasons, which is kind of crazy. The Chargers, well, we have their head coach, so we'll be a base nickel team. This is one of the plays that can force the hand of a nickel structure that wants to retain the too high presentation as long as possible. Seattle's great at it with Mike McDonald. Obviously, we know that, right? Giving you that look for as long as possible. And Seattle does it whether you're in 11, 12, or even 13 personnel. This concept is quite obviously displays the horizontal constraints upon a defense, or the horizontal stretch, I should say. Whether the quarterback is reading it or not, the defensive end and the inside linebackers don't know that. You kind of saw that reaction with the play, the end zone angle that I showed you of the Packers play where Roquan steps out and Mike Green tries to go down and chase the running back, but the tackle on the backside blocked him once again. Teams will defend it differently with Lamar at quarterback for sure, right? As opposed to guys like Goff, Huntley that I showed here for the Ravens offensive play, the second one I showed you. I apologize if I didn't show enough Ravens film for you. The idea was a concept that Baltimore has ran that I hope, that I think and project Declan Doyle will continue to rely on, and that's the down sweep. It's in the Ben Johnson system. It's a major part of the playbook. A major focus is to attack into the boundary, and this is one specific way that they do it. Finally, I'll give you one thought about something that is upcoming for me. I don't know if I'll be able to produce it by Saturday. That's about the Minter and Weaver defensive systems. And in fact, I found some teams that they both played in 2025. So obviously, the Dolphins played the Patriots twice, and the Chargers played them in the playoffs. The Colts, Commanders, and Steelers were all common opponents during the regular season. So I found some interesting similarities there about how those teams defended them. That'll be a little bit more of a long-form video than this one. But look, if you guys enjoy the video, please let me know in the comment section. I am trying actively to find content that I think is compelling and will reliably, as much as possible, project what we're going to run and also give you some reasons why Declan Doyle will choose to run those. The down sweep is something that I feel pretty confident we'll see a whole lot of. And when we do, it's going to be into the boundary. If you guys enjoyed the video, please let me know in the comment section, number one. Number two, if you think other Ravens fans would enjoy this one as well. It's a little impromptu and maybe has too minute or small a focus, one concept. But if you think other Ravens fans would enjoy it nonetheless, please consider grabbing a link to this video, sharing it out on social media to help this content get more reach.